You're listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at SBT Songs, or check us out at chrisblair.com. Welcome back, everybody. This is Chris Blair with another episode of Stories Behind the Songs, and today I've got Jenn Bostic on the podcast. Jenn has been playing the listening room since the very beginning, and we're going to dive into just all of her stories, how she got started in music with the early days. That led her to going to Berklee College of Music. And then we're going to dive into the story behind Jealous of the Angels. It's a song that she wrote about her dad. Very vulnerable. She's going to play a little bit of that song, just so beautiful. She's also going to talk about all the albums that she's been putting together, her favorite album, Revival, and just how her love of multiple genres, country, pop, rock, all of those kind of things, poured into Revival and the Christian meaning and the faith behind that album. Some great advice for new writers, and also a little bit about sync, which is when you write a song for TV, commercials, movies, and things like that, and just how she's found some success there. It was a great episode. Let's get to it. Here is Jenn Bostic. All right, we are here in Nashville. Jenn Bostic in the house. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Gosh, there's a lot of great stuff that I want to dive into with you today. Let's start off just like I do every episode. Talk about your childhood growing up and how you got into music.
Yeah, I grew up in small town Minnesota, Waconia, Minnesota. And music was just always in our home. My dad was a hobby musician. He could pick up pretty much any instrument and play it. And I remember sitting next to him at the piano and singing along. And unfortunately, when I was 10 years old, a big part of my testimony and my story is that we lost my dad in a car accident that my brother and I were involved in. And music was just this one beautiful way I could still connect to him. I felt like I could still almost sense his nearness when I was playing or singing. And so songwriting just kind of became my almost accidental therapy. Yeah. And I really just threw myself into it. You know, everything that my high school and middle school had offered for music, I was involved in. And I started, writing songs because I couldn't find words to really express what I was going through, but somehow I could find melodies and lyrics and chords that would express it.
What were some of your early influences?
It was across the board because my mom loved musical theater. So that was always kind of blasting in the house. My brother was really big into country. So I think our first concert was ever, it was Garth Brooks and Faith Hill, I think. And one of their big, many
Garth was my first
things.
concert.
Yes, I love that. That's so fun. So and then my dad loved like Emmylou and Bonnie Raitt and that style as well. Yeah. So I feel like I had a lot going on. And then of course, I was in high school at the time of Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears and all the wonderful boy bands. So
So when you kind of knew then like music was the path, and you followed that even into college. So talk about that, and then kind of how you got to Nashville.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to do something with music. I had found this beautiful outlet, obviously through songwriting and just playing music. And I felt like I maybe wanted to help others find that through teaching. And so I actually went to school to be a choir director, a high school choir director. That was the goal. And again, coming from small town, I think I had these big dreams that were hidden in my heart, but didn't really have the confidence to pursue them. And I went off to Boston. I studied at Berklee College of Music, went through the 4.5-year music education program, did my student teaching, and I was all ready. But there were little nudges throughout my college career that I felt like, wow, if I don't really try to write songs and sing them, I may regret that. Yeah. And the wonderful thing about Berklee is they take a spring break trip to Nashville. And so I went on the trip 3 of the 4 spring breaks that I spent up in Boston. And just coming here and getting a feel for the city, and the people that they had on panels for us were just so kind and down to earth, and it made it feel accessible, and there was something about this city that those of us who live here or have been here just feel. And I had this sense that, maybe I should try Nashville for a little while. So moved here in 2008. I've been here ever since, so it's been a while, but it has been such a beautiful ride. My first album was actually a country record, a pop country record. I wanted to be the next Carrie Underwood, but it turns out that we already have one of her. So I recorded that record at Starstruck Studios with some friends from college, and that was it felt like a master's degree, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so that was the start of it. When I released that record in 2009, I just wanted to be on the road. I wanted to be on tour, and no booking agents were knocking down my door. So I started picking up the phone and calling any, coffee shop or small venue, or even like someone that was willing to open their house to a house concert in places that I knew I had couches to sleep on. And that was kind of the first tour.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Wow. So when did you, or how did you kind of build your tribe when you first moved to town?
Thankfully, a lot of people from school had already moved down here, a lot of people that I had gone to Berklee with. And so I did have a little crew, but I was out either listening to or performing in a writer's round somewhere as often as I could. I mean, some nights it was one venue at this time, and a couple hours later you're at another venue. And those were how so many of the friendships and even collaborations were built, just by meeting people in those rounds. And the fact that, just moved to Nashville and I got to play a couple songs, at a venue somewhere. And, even if there were 5 people, they cared to listen, was just unbelievable to me.
Yeah. I love it. Let's dive into a couple songs.
Great.
I want to dive into, Jealous of the Angels. Talk to me about how that idea came about and just what transpired after that.
Yeah. So Jealous of the Angels is written about my dad who passed away. And I really did try to write songs that would kind of get out all the emotions that I was feeling, but didn't quite get there until this song was written. And
how many songs do you think you went through before that?
Man, a lot. Some unfinished, some finished, but I would say at least a dozen songs that, I just kept trying. And it's a vulnerable, emotional thing.
Sure.
So you get halfway through a song and you're like, I can't. I just don't have the mental or emotional capacity to finish this,
Yeah.
And so that was happening time after time. And most of those songs I was writing by myself because it felt so personal. And, I wasn't ready to share that. And a friend of mine, Zach Runquist, had just kind of approached me and said, hey, I have this idea. It's kind of called Around the Throne, and I'd love to help you unpack the story of your dad and just everything that has been for you. And so he called his friend Jimmy Fortune, and the 3 of us set up a writing session to go out to Jimmy's house and write, this song Around the Throne. Well, the day of the write comes, and Jimmy lives quite a drive for me, and I'm on the drive over there, and I'm just feeling guilt of I have no idea. It's I haven't processed through this. I don't really want to write a song about this. This just feels heavy today. All the things. Yeah. It's raining. I'm super early because I'm type A and I'm way too early for everything. So I pull in this parking lot and I'm probably about 15 minutes from Jimmy's house, and I pull out my journal and I just start writing. I'm like, you got to get yourself in that space. We're going to go there. So you've got to get yourself ready. So I just start writing and writing and writing. And I probably do 6 to 8 pages front and back of just stream of conscious, anything that's coming to my mind about the accident, about, anything I've gone through up until that point with feelings. And I show up at the session and I show up very apologetically. Guys, I feel totally unprepared. I'm so sorry, but I did write some pages. Let me just read them. And within those pages were the words, I'm just so jealous of all the angels that are with my dad now. And Jimmy just stopped me and he said, that's our song.
Jen.
And their song was written, a half hour. Maybe it just fell out of us. We were all 3 in tears, and it was never something I was going to perform live. I really felt like it was just a therapy session for me. And these 2 guys were just so kind to let me, have that moment. And, Jimmy had said some really encouraging things if my kids said, any of this after I was gone, it would just be the biggest honor. Yeah. And so those things that just are so therapeutic. And it was this release. I felt like I'd been carrying this weight on my shoulders that I didn't even realize was there. And after the song was written, it's almost as if it just lifted. It was insane. And then maybe a week later, I was in a writer's round and it was almost my turn to play a song. and my palms just start, I'm sitting in my chair, my palms are sweating and my heart's racing. And like, there's this little nudge that says, play that song about your dad. And I'm like, no way, like there's no way I can do that. Like not even, I just wrote it, like barely know it, and it's way too emotional, but I kept feeling it. So I played the song and barely got through it, but I made it through. And after the show, a woman came up to me and she said, I lost my dad 2 days ago and I know that you played that song for me tonight. And this just shift in my heart happened. And I knew that if what I had gone through and this song could help even one person find a little bit of comfort in their grief, then I had a responsibility to share it, right? And so I recorded the song and I filmed a music video for it in my hometown, Waconia. And everything was, low budget, just trying to like get it out there, put it on YouTube. And 6 months later, I was scrolling on what was once Twitter, and some radio station in England had played my song because somebody found it. And that led to just this unbelievable journey that I'm still on. And it's been crazy. 3 weeks after I saw that tweet, so many radio stations had started picking up the phone or picking up the song because their phones were just ringing off the hook with requests for it. 3 weeks later, I'm on an airplane flying to England to perform the song on BBC Breakfast Television. It goes number 1 on the songwriter chart. It was insane. I mean, ever since then, I've, toured a couple times a year over there, and it just changed my world,
Yeah. What do you think was one of the most special moments that you've gotten to experience so far with that song?
Wow. I'm so grateful and so humbled by so many opportunities with that song. I got to sing it at the Grand Ole Opry. I got to sing it at the Ryman Auditorium. I mean, those are just huge bucket list things that I got to do. But there's this one special moment that always comes to mind with that song. And I was in London at this tiny little venue called the Green Note. And it was just me and a keyboard. And I was playing this song, and it was very obvious that people were coming from different backgrounds of faith, and the song is very much about heaven. And as I was finishing the song, I just felt this little prompting to go into Amazing Grace. And I went into it, and to my surprise, the entire room ended up singing. I mean, it was a small club, so probably like 60 people, like full voice, a cappella. Every single person in that room, regardless of like what they believed, was singing this hymn together after hearing the song. And I think in that moment, I just felt like, wow, there's a ministry in this. There's something so much bigger than I anticipated with sharing these vulnerable stories and just walking wherever I feel like I'm supposed to go,
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Can we hear a little bit of it?
Of course. I didn't know today would be our last, or that I'd have to say goodbye to you so fast. I'm so numb, I can't feel anymore. Praying you just walk back through that door and tell me that I was only dreaming. You're not really gone as long as I believe. There will be another angel around the throne tonight. Your love lives on inside of me, and I will hold on tight. It's not my place to question, only God knows why. I'm just jealous of the angels around the throne tonight.
So good.
It's been amazing with that song too. I obviously have seen so many of my dreams as an artist come true through it, but there have been just countless artists in Europe who have gone on to record the song and take it to places that, I never dreamed that it would go. And it's just been amazing. And I feel like it happens almost every couple of years. Like I was in Ireland recently, and somebody showed me this article that said, Jealous of the Angels is a classic in Ireland now. I'm like, am I old enough to have a classic? So I'm super thankful and just humbled by it. It's something, I really believe that song's something so much bigger than I could begin to take credit for,
Yeah. So beautiful. It's got to be just so special that through tragedy that you get to share that with the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely helped me heal. That's for sure.
Yeah. Let's dive into, you put out a Christian album.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. I want to go into, you've done stuff in multiple genres, which is really cool and not something that we see a lot with the guests that I have on. Typically it's country music or, pop only or whatever. So let's talk about the album. And then I want to kind of transition into what led you into different genres like that.
Yeah, that sounds great. So my latest record, it's a contemporary Christian record called You Find a Way. And it was recorded and written with a dear friend of mine named Lauren Christie. And Lauren is an unbelievable writer, producer. For those who don't know that name, you definitely know the music. It's she wrote Complicated and Skater Boy for Avril Lavigne. She wrote Remedy for Jason Mraz. She's written with Korn, Dua Lipa, BB Rexa. The list is so long. And after the success of Jealous of the Angels, I was working with a management team who was setting me up with just every, producer, writer to start creating the next record. And Lauren was one of those people. And if I'm totally honest, I started to get a little bit insecure when I started to get in some of those rooms because, it was this person just had a hit with this huge artist and this person just won a Grammy for this. And I'm like, okay, I can do this, And, I kind of deferred a lot of times to whatever they thought was the right choice in a song rather than listening to my artist's heart because I was like, oh, they must know what they're doing because they've got, the Grammy or whatever it is. Except with Lauren, there was something so magical about that friendship. And the day we met, we weren't even supposed to write. She was kind enough to agree to just have a coffee with me. And I was on my drive over there and I remember my team kind of putting a little bit of pressure on me that, it's important that she likes you. And I'm like, I can't make anybody like me. I will just be myself. And so
You're pretty likable. So,
thank you. Yeah. But I remember praying on the way there. I'm like, oh man, this feels pressured. I'm going to walk in there not as myself if I feel pressured. So Lord, if this is supposed to work out, great. If it's not, just close the door. It's fine. Either way, just help it be clear. And again, it was very clear. This was not a writing session. I am 5 minutes into coffee at her house and she just says, do you have any song ideas? And I was like, well, yeah, let's go to the piano and check them out. So I ended up playing her this little idea I had. We finished that song as well as another song that was started from an idea that she had that she just brought to the table, and it was so beautiful the way she shared. She had just become a Christian about 3 years before I met her. And so she shared her entire testimony of faith with me and how she came to know the Lord. And so many parallels were there. It was just this divine sisterhood, this divine connection that happened. And, you just can't explain it any other way. It was amazing. And so anytime I came into LA, where she lives, I would kind of give her an email or a call and say, hey, I'm coming to town. I know you're busy, but she would always make time. We would always write a song. And I was still, doing the indie thing and was still funding my own records. And every once in a while we would have a song together. And I think my third album, we had 5 songs together and her brother helped with production. And it just became this really, really great friendship. Well, I had continued. I did my 3rd album and then a 4th album. And at the end of that 4th album, it's an album called Revival. It's kind of an Americana, bluesy, soulful record. Did it with all my friends, drained my bank account. I was at the end and I'm like, all right, I have no money left. Lord, you're really going to have to show me what's next. Cause if I'm done, that's okay too, whatever you have for me. But I've always been, I've been a worship leader my whole adult life. And it's such a natural, the faith is always weaved into my lyrics. And that's just what inspires me. And I really prayed through that. I didn't want it to just be a decision I made that okay, now I'm going to make a Christian album. But it was on my heart, because I was always leading worship on a Sunday and it just felt so natural. But I just prayed, Lord, if this is what you have, just give me a really, really clear sign,
Yeah.
And a week after I prayed that prayer, Lauren calls me out of the blue. I hadn't talked to her in, a few months. And she just says, hey, I've had so much success in the pop world. And I really just want to do an album that honors God. And every time I pray about it, he puts you on my heart. So will you pray about like doing a record together? You and I will write all the songs. My husband and I will fund it. And, we'll just do something that we love. She's like, well, just pray about it. I'm like, I already did. So, so that is the You Find a Way record. And yeah, it's been really beautiful. Of course, it was supposed to be released Easter of 2020. So it kind of had like a little pause, but that was great because, we ended up going back and adding another song to it and having more time to really think through music videos and things like that. So it ended up coming out July of 2022 and it, did well on the Christian iTunes chart for that and, had some radio play, but that was really never what it was about to begin with. And so I think it's just out there and it's amazing how people will find certain songs off that record and just kind of send us messages and say, man, I'm really going through this and like the Lord's speaking me through this song. And I think that's all we ever hoped with that album.
Yeah. You've said before that that's your favorite album.
Yeah.
Is it because of those stories that you hear?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. I think each album holds like a really special place.
Yeah.
I think I grew the most in that album for sure. I think spiritually and musically, and I just had an opportunity to dive deep and be bold in what I believe. And I think that I'm probably guilty of it in the past, kind of saying, well, I want to make sure this is accessible so that, it's hitting like everybody who is wanting to listen to music, not just, somebody who believes what I believe. But I think what I love the most about that record is, I played a show in London not too long ago, and there was a guy who did a review on the show from Germany, and he said, anybody who knows me knows that I'm an atheist, but there's something about this music that just spoke to my soul, like it moved me. And he doesn't believe, the same things as me at all. But I think those are the really powerful moments that you just can't ignore. And I think maybe, that part of it is really, really special.
I love that. If you had to pick a favorite song off of that?
Man, that's tough. There's one that I feel like when we wrote it, I thought it was, a pretty song and, held this space. But I was on tour in Europe during March of 2020 when everything started to shut down and I had to cancel half my tour and kind of thinking, oh man, like what's going to happen here? And that song, for some reason, just kept coming to mind. And so any train I was on, anywhere I was in my travel from one show to the next, everybody was talking about what was going on with this virus and everything. And I couldn't escape it. And I put my headphones in and just had this song on repeat. And it was a song that like we wrote, maybe even a year earlier, but that's when I felt it for the first time is when I needed it. Right. And I think that's maybe one of the first times that's ever happened for me, where when we wrote it, it was pretty, but when I needed it, it was everything I needed. Yeah. And so that song's called Wrapped. And when I got home, I finally did get, back like the last day that you were supposed to be able to enter the country. I got back and I just called Lauren and I said, hey, this got me home. Like I listened to this probably 50 times on repeat and like this just gave me peace. If it's going to help one other person while we're doing, while we're in whatever we're in that nobody, understands right now, this uncertainty, like I want to release this now. And so we did, we got it together and, just put it out there so that if it would help anybody bring them peace during the unknown that all of us were facing, then yeah.
I love how it can twist, and it's just like a song that was pretty and then it touched you. Take me into the room with Lauren that day. How did that song even come about?
Yeah, we were already working on the record, and I think it was on one of my shorter trips to LA to maybe write one or two songs for the record and hang out. And I started it on guitar, which is strange for me anyway, because I'm mainly a piano player. But I just had this vision of being wrapped in the arms of God. Just like I think I've always really viewed God in like a father sense, and I'm sure that's because I lost my dad, and so he is that so much for me. And this idea of just being held, I think there's so much peace in that, and it's brought me a lot of comfort. And so this picture is in my mind of I'd really love to write a song that captures this. And so it was just a pretty little melody. I played, whatever I had, maybe part of the chorus, and we just finished it real quickly together, sitting on our couch. It was each of our sessions were so relaxed, and just, we would have a 20-minute tangent on some devotional in the middle. You know, like it was just almost a Bible study every time we got together to write, which was so fun. And like I said, it really helped me to grow spiritually. But yeah, there was no grandiose story, you know, like that one was just, here's a sweet moment that I want to like remember and think of with the Lord. And we wrote it, and little did I know how much I would need it, you know, later on. And Theron Feemster produced it for us, and he's just unbelievable. So yeah, it was a really, really special song and has become one for us. Yeah.
So good. We will put links to the album in the liner notes so everybody can check that out. This episode is brought to you by Sennheiser microphones. When we first started this podcast, we were using some older microphones, and Sennheiser came in and sponsored us and gave us some MK4s and 914s. And I mean, I'm telling you, it's made all of the difference in the world. We love these microphones. We use them at the listening room as well. And I just can't say enough great things about them. Go check out Sennheiser.com. If you are into music in any way, their microphones are hands down the best on the planet. Go check them out, Sennheiser.com. And thank you, Sennheiser, for the support and the sponsorship. We love y'all. Let's touch on the different genres. Like what started that? Because again, like I said earlier, like most people, like they find their music, their influence, and they stick to that. And I think it's really cool that you've just kind of gone across the spectrum.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for that. I'm really grateful for the listening room, because I feel like it's one of the only stages I feel like I truly belong on, if that makes sense, in Nashville. This is such a special space, and I feel like I can bring the fullness of who I am, and it doesn't matter if it's country, it doesn't matter if it's pop, like none of that matters, and that's really rare and really special. So thank you for that, for sure. I love so many different styles of music. I mean, I'm constantly influenced by so many different things. And when I sit down to write a song, it's really hard for me to be like, okay, I'm going to write a country song today for myself, or I'm going to write, you know, this type of song specifically, unless there's, you know, a prompt for a television show or something like that. Yes, I can do it. But if I'm just going to write for the love of writing that day, I don't want to think about what it is until it tells me, you know, like I want to sit with it and see where I'm inspired. And sometimes I'm just playing the piano and I'll hit a certain chord and I'm like, ooh, that's cool. And I don't know if it's bluesy. I don't know if it's pop yet, you know, like it hasn't told me. So that
I love that. It hasn't told me. That's so good.
So it allows me to just be creative if I don't think about what it has to be, right? And I think I did that. I think I really tried when I recorded my pop country record. I really tried to write songs that I thought would be on country radio. And as much as I love, you know, creating that record, and I do view it as a master's degree, right? When I step back, I don't see myself in it the way that I see myself in my music now. And even since my sophomore album, I would say. And I've just kind of continued to follow wherever I'm going. I think my voice has always found itself in that soulful bluesy spot. I think that that's where I feel the most comfortable. But it's been fun to just experiment. And when you're with a different producer, that's going to inspire something different, you know, with your voice or the chord choices that you use. And if you're in with a different co-writer, you know, they're going to play something that you're like, oh, that's really cool. It might not be what I normally do, but let's run with it and see what happens. And like, it takes the rules off. And I think I really struggled with that for many, many years, like trying to be what a record label might want me to be. And now I'm so thankful that, you know, like I get to stay home with my 2-year-old. I get to write songs when, you know, I schedule them. I get to go on tour when I schedule it. And like, I love being an independent artist. So yeah, I'm really grateful that I get to just write whatever I feel that day and record it.
Let's dive into that a little bit, because it is, I mean, there's so many tools out there that that make it easier for an independent artist to do their thing nowadays, but there's also so many challenges. So what has that been like for you? And talk about, like, just for listeners out there that maybe are aspiring to do this independently, what advice would you give them?
Oh man, so much, so much. You know, I feel really.
I'm gonna just sit back and you just right? Just let's go. Yeah, come on.
Like, oh no, and with a blanket statement of, you know, everybody's journey is different, and like any advice I would give, it just is the advice that worked for me. You know, I really love what I do, and I feel like I really just, if you you've got to love it enough to do it even when it hurts, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the first album I had when I got shut down by so many record labels, it was I'm too pop for country, too country for pop. Nobody knows what to do with me. The songs don't sound authentic, whatever it was. That I used that to write the next record. Like I use that pain and that disappointment or whatever it is to just keep fueling the art. And as hard or as frustrating or disappointing as that might have been in certain seasons, I feel like it helped me. Like every time I got back up, I got back up stronger, and it might have hurt a little bit more each time, but I feel like you just find out more and more who you are. And like there is a place for all of us, right? There really is.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds silly and cliche maybe, but I had to learn that there is a spot for me. And if I just keep doing me to the best of my ability, like that's going to find its home. And I can be so surprised with some of the things that pop up. And I'm just like, whoa, that's amazing. That wasn't even on my radar, but because I was, following the muse authentically and like, creating this art, like it found its place and I was being as true as I could be to it. And yes, putting it out there and making sure that people can find it, is very important. And I admittedly released a single not too long ago, and it was like in the midst of like a lot of family stuff going on. And sometimes you release it and you're like, you know what? I could have done better there, but we learned for the next one, and that's like however many years in now too, that you just keep doing the thing. And if you love it and, you're still enjoying it and finding joy in it. I love performing live, and I do probably now that I'm a mom, like 2 or 3 weekends a month. And it's such a great joy to me. Like when you lose that joy, I mean, you got to find a new way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I just had a thought. I lost it. You said something in there. I lost it. It'll come back to me. Okay. You mentioned a while ago about television. And so I want to talk about that a little bit because I know you've done a lot of sync. And if you can, just for everybody listening, talk about that a little bit, even explaining what sync is.
Yeah.
And just how you got into that and maybe like what the difference is between writing a song for television or a movie or something like that with a sync license versus putting something out for radio or a DSP.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am relatively new to sync as of like 2020. I feel like I had a few songs earlier in my career just randomly find themselves on a TV show, like without me really knowing what I was doing. But I have stepped into it a little more now, kind of by accident. There's a song called Feelin' Alright that I wrote with my buddy Jeff Cohen, Fraser Watt, Carrie Watt, the four of us during COVID, sat down on Zoom, and we just were all in such a gray spot, and we were like, we need some sunshine. Let's just write something happy today.
Yeah. And
song sat on our computers for a year and a half, and then 2021 Christmas time, Samsung found the song through one of our outlets, and they wanted to use it for a headphone commercial, and they used 15 seconds of the song. And I quickly learned how big the paycheck is for 15 seconds when it's a company like Samsung. So I all of a sudden was like, whoa, this is a thing. Okay, let's figure this out. And at the time, things were starting to open up, and a lot of my LA friends were starting to either move here or come here more often. And I feel like many of them, there's a crew called Hook House that, I think they're kind of both between here and LA, but they get in the house and do these sync EPs. And, within 2 or 3 days, you got a 5-song EP for 2 different artists that are going off to various outlets to get songs synced. I didn't explain what that is, but getting it behind TV shows or movies and all of that, like the music that plays in the background, for those who don't know. And there are specific companies that have wide open lines to send music directly to various shows and things like that. So you have something like Hook House, which is constantly just pumping out music. And it's another, like you said, I don't get stuck on a genre. It's such a fun avenue for me because like I've got so many different projects and so many different genres. Like there is a Miley Cyrus type pop record or EP that I got to do that's going to come out under another name, which we haven't even picked the new name yet, but that's coming out. And then I've got this like throwback horns thing that's going to come out actually under my name. But I really just get to play in that space, which is so fun. And not only for myself as an artist, but I get to go in and write, like one day we're writing something totally different from the next. And that is so fun to me. And you're there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and we're just like making stuff happen. And you just see it come to life with a crew of friends. And that's so fun. And the outlet that they're going through to get things on TV and film, it's got like about a 90% success rate. So it's amazing to know that like as you're creating it too, you're like excited to almost like visualize what shows is going to end up on. This is so fun, And the Feelin' Alright song, I'd love to play a little snip of it for you. It's super fun.
Yes. We hear it all the time. So
it's something a little bit different than I would normally do. Walking down the street, I see a happy face, flashing a smile my way, and I feel brand new. No one's a stranger as they pass me by. No, everyone's a friend of mine. Ooh. Can you feel the good vibration running through the population? We got celebrating to do. Feeling alright, sipping sunshine. I'll be chasing rainbows day and night. I'm gonna take flight, take tickets sky high. Way above the clouds, I'm feeling alright, alright.
Makes me want to just go buy some headphones right now.
That's good. That's cool.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I remembered what I wanted to talk about. First, hold on. I'm all over the place. Anything else on sync?
You did ask the difference between writing, for my artist project and writing for sync. I think I'm a little bit less specific. That's probably the biggest thing for me.
Explain that.
So the lyrics, like the Jealous of the Angel song I sang earlier, it's very, specific to my story. And so if you're writing a song for sync, you don't necessarily know what the storyline is going in. Sometimes you do, but a lot of times you don't. And so the ideas are a little bit more general. You can put little specific things in here and there, but I think to be a real storyteller in a sync song can sometimes keep it from being able to be used for certain scenes. Yeah. So, you still want to write a great song at the end of the day, but it's just kind of keeping that in mind that, hey, if we say it this specifically, then it may not, lend itself to being able to be in certain shows. So, yeah. That's
good. Yeah. I'm trying to think of, how many, what would you say the amount of time is that what you're writing for versus, you're just writing a song that's going to be pitched out to everything.
So my situation is more so on the just write and pitch it out to everything. Yeah. I bought my publishing back from my former publisher a few years back. And so I own that now. And so I don't have necessarily like a pitch sheet that I'm going for. I'm just creating all the time and getting it out to outlets that I know are accessible to me. I think there are definitely people that would say the other way, their publishers are sending them, here's what people are looking for right now. And sometimes, a song that's just general that we're writing, with friends at Hook House are getting those same slots, but we didn't realize, that's what the need was. So I think both are, active and doing the thing for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Jumping back to, you're working on your 6th album now. Is that correct?
I am.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to go back to. So is this like a continual of revival?
You could say that for sure. It's definitely that vibe. If I was going to compare it to any of my other albums and how they were made, I love as an artist going to the studio with incredible musicians and seeing what happens. And that I feel like Nashville taught me that. Like the amazing thing about just going in and doing a session with live instruments. And again, a lot of the sync stuff is, you're building the track right there. And that's how a lot of music is made now. And I love bands like Tedeschi Trucks and I love Bonnie Raitt and I love, that sound is just where my heart is. Yeah. And so I recently went into the studio with a couple really dear friends that play with me a lot. And we recorded 5 songs. And because I feel like I've seen it enough times, I was like, all right, I think I'm going to produce this. I think I'm going to sit in the producer chair and let's try to record these songs and see what happens. And it's funny because I'm so close with all those musicians. I kind of mentioned, I feel, a little underqualified to be sitting in this chair. And they all were like, Jen, you've been doing this for 15 years. It's like, it's a role you're already in that you're just not calling it that, So it'll be fun to see how that comes out. It's amazing when you get great players in there. It's like, it's almost done. It feels like once you leave, it's not, there's still a lot of work to be done, and I'm still going to go cut lead vocals and get it mixed properly and all of those things. But it's amazing how fast those songs just come to life.
Yeah. Let's talk about the producer chair a little bit. Cause that's also an interesting twist. Specifically, I want to know, where does your mind go when you've got maybe, 25, 30 songs that you're considering for an album? And a lot of times with that relationship with a producer, you'll sit down and you'll get that input from a producer of like, hey, let's focus on these songs. And they kind of play that role, with a lot of people. So how was this project for you of kind of honing down into like, okay, these are the songs that are going to get cut? And was there any kind of, I love how, you openly talk about your faith, believe the same things. And I just absolutely love that. So is there any of that goes into it that when you're trying to pick, like?
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Yes. A lot of prayer goes into it. And, as cheesy as this will sound to some people, I really view God as almost a producer in all of this sense too. It's like, he gave me these songs. He is showing me how they should sound in my head. So it's like for me to have to articulate that to another person and then a band, it was almost like let's just articulate it to the band and see if we can do this together. There were 3 songs I was absolutely certain of. Then a couple nights before, and I remember even that night sitting down with my husband and being like, okay, listen to a couple of these other ones, what resonates with you, what resonates with what you've seen me do live and all of that. And he's an incredible sounding board, not a musician, which is super helpful too. Yeah. It's for him to just be a music lover and listener. But when we got to the studio, I had 5 songs that I was like, okay, I feel like this is the order we'll go in. We'll probably only get 3 or 4 done, but let's just have a 5th ready. And my mom actually lost her house in this recent hurricane, and she's staying with my husband and I right now. And it's been just really sad to see someone that you love go through that kind of thing. And now as a mom, to have my mom living with us and to just see, I'm starting to see her in a different way, just appreciate who she was even before I was here, in a way that I'm watching my son. There are things about me, who I was before being a mom, that my son will never truly know, right? And he'll never truly see. And so I'm starting to kind of almost see some things about my mom, who she was before I was here. Mm. And it's just been a really beautiful season of that. So I got together with Maya Sharp and we wrote a song called See You Now. And, it was kind of the 5th song of the day. I'm like, we'll see. It's a little bit slower and vibier for this project, but maybe it'll work. I really do love it. I was really just connected to it. And for those who don't know, when you do kind of a live session like that, you play the song, just a demo recording of the song in the control room in the booth before the musicians go in. And that's all they've heard of it. That's the only time they hear it. They get a chart and they go in and just crush it. And I played the demo, and after it was over, it was really quiet. And Mike Hicks, who was on keys, he just goes, well, that's the best song of the day. It just hit in a way that I didn't realize it would. And so it's amazing how you think you've got a plan, and then of course God's actually, you're going to get to that 5th song and it's actually maybe going to be your favorite, so it's been that was a really sweet moment. I feel like that I got to have with the band there too.
Yeah. How do you feel like your discipline through life has gotten you to that point where you hear him?
Man, that's a great question. I think there are seasons too that I've manufactured hearing him or thought I heard him when it wasn't the thing. Yeah, but
it's hard.
It is. It really is. I think, really one of my biggest issues is control. Like I am a type A perfectionist control freak, and I just want to be like, I want to have the reins in my hand. And there's actually a song on the You Find a Way record called Leave It at the Cross, and it's all just about surrender. And when I do that, then I have to, every morning I get up and, we'll spend a little bit of time in prayer or in the word or both. And that is continually the biggest thing. Is it's just like, I have to be open. I have to like let go. I have to like, whatever this day is, like help me to not overreact if it's not what I had in mind. And with a 2-year-old, that is it's hard. But I think if I open myself up in that way, like there's been nights here on this stage, that I had a completely different set list in mind. And not everybody that walks through the listening room doors is going to believe what I believe. But if I have that prompting of, play that song, that specific one, I'll listen to that rather than just being like, oh, well, this one's, available on Spotify and people can listen later. I've had to crush that. Like none of that, it has to matter in the moment of those little promptings. And, 100% of the time when that happens, when I listen to that little nudge, someone will come up after either in tears or just very passionately saying that song just cut me. Though, like, and it's just like it, it got to them in some way, whatever, however they say that. But that to me is way more important than like, oh, I'm going to play this one because I want more streams on it or whatever that might be. Like I can't care in that moment. And like whatever God's going to do is so much bigger than whatever my little plan is.
You trust those nudges.
Yeah.
Is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. That was a very long-winded way for me to say that. Yeah. That was clear.
No, your way was way more beautiful. So it's hard. And thanks for going there with me. Cause this is, I love this and this is how I live my life.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about this a lot on the podcast, and this is about the stories behind the songs, but I love that we're right here. I heard, for me, I'm actually going through a very tough time with a big decision I have to make right now. And I often find myself like, praying like, hey, I need you to open this door, or I need you to slam it in my face. Like, just show me which road to go down. And I literally just recently heard this story about a guy that was visiting Mother Teresa and was having this conversation with Mother Teresa and was like, hey, will you pray for me? And she said, of course I will. And he said, I want you to pray specifically that God will show me the right path. And she immediately was like, no. And he was like, what do you mean no? And it was this, and she went on and was like, there's so many times where like, you don't know the right path and God's not always going to show you, but what I'll pray for is trust. And like, that's what you have to have is like that trust and like taking that, like when you're on stage and you feel those nudges and, when you're walking through life, just to have the trust that you are listening and you're hearing the right way, and that no matter which road you go on, that if you have that full trust, that He's got you.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's so hard to do sometimes, but man, it is so true.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into this new project. Pick a song and take us into that song before we wrap up. Let's just end with one more song.
Yeah, that sounds great. I told you that I've got a 2-year-old at home, and when he was first born, I was trying to be type A perfectionist, which you just can't do with a newborn. And I was so concerned with, what brand of diapers is he going to wear and what solids is he going to eat first? And like, he doesn't care about any of that, right? Yeah. He just wants to be loved. And that part is so, so easy. But what's amazing about this song to me is that I've played it out quite a bit. I think I might have even debuted it in this room, but the more I play it, the more I realize I feel like it's a sweet reminder from the Lord that I'm not as difficult to love as I think I am sometimes. So this is easy to love. I can be hard on myself. Sometimes I feel like it's so natural for everybody else, fumbling my own way the whole way through. Yeah, life can be a little difficult, but then there's you. You make it easy to love you. Say what you mean what you say, and you ain't playing games. Yeah, some days can be so hard to get through, but even when it's tough, you're just so easy to love. So easy to love.
So good.
Thank you.
When is that album coming out?
That's a great question. I don't know.
You're the producer.
I know. See, that's the problem. I need somebody to be giving me deadlines, but I'm hoping, maybe spring of next year.
Awesome.
We'll see.
We'll keep tracking that. And you've got a lot of cool stuff coming up.
Yes.
You want to briefly just talk about Christmas tour in February and all that?
Yes, I do. And, I'm glad we got to go there today in this podcast, because I think, to me, this is just one huge chunk of my testimony that I haven't shared yet. So I'm getting a chance to share it now. Jealous of the Angels, like I said, kind of just keeps things happening, and the Lord has been so kind in making so many of my dreams come true through it. And the Grand Ole Opry was a huge dream of mine to play that stage. I mean, that was a huge bucket list. And after I got a chance to do that, the next dream was Royal Albert Hall in London. And, I started to maybe play small and thinking that's a very, very big dream. We'll see. And now I'm in mom life, so I'm not writing as much, I'm not out there touring as much, not overseas as much. And I was on my way to a session a couple months ago, and an artist named Catherine Jenkins, who is a beautiful pop classical singer over in the UK, much success. She hosts a lot of television shows over there too. She sent me a text out of the blue. I mean, I haven't spoken to her ever in person, but a couple times via text. Yeah. And she's been, so gracious. When she did a beautiful version of Jealous of the Angels years ago. But it was released maybe 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
She texted me out of the blue and she said, "Hey, are you going to be in the UK around December 11th? I have an annual Christmas show at the Royal Albert Hall, and I would love for you to be a special guest." And tears just started streaming out of my eyes. I was just like, are you kidding me, Lord? This is a dream that I, was even just letting go of. Mm. And he just, in a way that only he can, was like, okay, let's make this happen. So it is happening. I am going to go over and sing a couple songs with her, including Jealous of the Angels, on that incredible stage. I mean, the show's already sold out. I think I'm a surprise guest. So thankfully this will be airing after it happens, but it'll be really, really special. So wow. I'm thankful.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I'll be headed back over to Europe for a week, 10 days, 10-day tour in February as well. And I've got about 12 Christmas shows with my two dear friends, Emily Shackleton and Sarah Darling, coming up. So it's going to be a busy, busy month.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. You've got so many great things coming up, and I'm just so proud of you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Last question. You ready?
I'm ready.
If you can go back to 8-year-old you, what advice do you give yourself today, Jenn?
Don't be afraid to be vulnerable, I think, is the biggest thing. And don't let your disappointments make you play small. Mm. It always seems that when things get really tough and you're ready to give up, that something incredible is right around the corner. And I really feel like every time I've kind of said, okay, God, I'm done, He'll just make a way that maybe looks so different from what I thought would happen or what I had dreamed of, but it's so much better because it's so specifically designed for you, and that's so special. So trust. I mean, that all goes back to just trusting God's plan for you, because it's so much greater than anything you can make up on your own.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys out there listening. We appreciate the support. Share this podcast with your friends. We would love that. And my name is Chris Blair. You've been listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Jenn Bostic, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify if you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you click that notification button so you can keep notified when new episodes come out. We release brand new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us on YouTube at Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to send us a comment letting us know what you thought of the episodes. We love getting your feedback, and share this with your friends. The more we grow, the more that we can keep doing this. It's our mission to bring you all of these great stories behind the songs from some of Nashville's most iconic artists and songwriters, publishers, producers, everyone in between, and a lot of my great friends. We love what we do, and we love sharing their stories with you. We appreciate all of the continued support. Thanks also to all of our sponsors, and we will see you all next week.